Something big is brewing in Montreal as not only are trade rumors escalating on the Jake Evans front and for some other players around the league that have been mentioned in relation to Montreal. We've heard rumors that Jake Evans might be shipped off to the Devils, stuff like that. There's crazy stuff, but that's not the only thing. There's a ton of stuff we got to get into coming up on this live episode of Habs Digest. Welcome in all of you here. We got some fun stuff. Lane Hutson on a recent poll, not even poll, recent daily faceoff article has been ranked #1 for the Calder. We got Jakub Dobes going out against the Capitals, the top team in the East, and some big updates on Laine and Savard. Jesse, not a normal Thursday day stream, but I'm excited to be here, excited to have the fans in. Had to make up for some of the missed streams over Christmas. Man, I'm excited to be back in the saddle here.
Yeah, I got to make up for it because of all this amazing stuff that's been happening in Habsland. So amazing, to be here live. Thank you all for tuning in, being here with us today. We're really just going to celebrate what these Habs are doing right now, and also what's those key moves kind of going forward.
Oh, there's so much to talk about, and we'll start with some of the practice updates. Just want to see some familiar names in chat, so I'm going to shout out. We see Frank, we see Hoopty, we see Sparta, Daddy Dino, and a lot of other names that I do recognize. Thank you all for being here. A lot of comments about Jake Evans already, and so I know that's going to be a spicy part of the show, but skip ahead later. Maybe if you're watching this after, there'll be a timestamp for Jake Evans. We'll be getting to that at the end of the show, so you'll want to stick around, but we got some important things to take care of first, Jesse, and they come from Habs practice today. Some updates from Brussels. So we saw David Savard and Patrik Laine both skating today, which first of all is an awesome sign. Of course, Savard has been out with a bit of an injury. He's getting older, right? That's what's going to happen as you get older and you block as many shots as he does. But Patrik Laine has been out with the flu. Flus can knock you out for a long time if you get the real flu and not just a bad cold. And Laine certainly seems knocked out by that. They will not be traveling. We'll get into Dobes in a second, but it's good to see that these guys are almost back. But even without them, Jesse, the Habs are proving that they have a nice, stable, repeatable game that they've been able to play even without one of their better defensive defensemen and one of their best, maybe their best goal scorer this year.
That's such a great point because we're all kind of nervous once they're winning some games, but then Laine went out. Like, how would this team kind of fare? But that being said, it's actually been a good opportunity for this Montreal Canadiens team to actually learn and grow and say, okay, are we going to apply all the great things that we built upon with Laine, right? Like, is our game going to fall apart without him not here? Or are we going to kind of continue running the show? And obviously, they've shown some growth of being able to do that without Savard being in the lineup. Again, giving some key insights to Kent Hughes of how he approaches this trade deadline. These are all very important things for this Habs when they're looking to progress right now. And for when it comes for Laine, we know he's not going to be playing tomorrow night, but Josh, I wouldn't rule him playing that Saturday night. It seems like he's on the ice. He's skating, looking very smooth. I digress. That shot is probably the smoothest in the NHL. Just looking so phenomenal. So, it's nice to see that they're back out there and will definitely, be so helpful to the team as soon as they're back.
Yeah, I can't wait, right? This is a back-to-back if you guys didn't know. We play Washington tomorrow, Friday night. Is it just me or have we had a ton of Friday night games this year? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it's been a lot and a lot of back-to-backs. We got Washington, who's the #1 team in the East, tomorrow night, Friday, and then we face Dallas Saturday night, but that's back in Montreal. So I think you might be onto something there, Jesse. This is just a mini one-game road trip. Montreal will be back at the Bell Center on Saturday. I got a poll up in the chat. I want you all to go vote. Will Montreal beat Washington tomorrow? Well, your answer might be affected by another little thing here. If you haven't heard, it's our boy Jakub Dobes who's going to be going up against the Washington Capitals. Now, his 2 games so far, Jesse, have been absolutely phenomenal. A shutout and then only 1 goal given up against. And now he's going up against the Capitals, who are, like I said, the #1 team in the East. I feel like I've said that a ton. It feels like the Habs are just feeding him to the best teams in the NHL. And so far, he's proven himself incredibly well. There's actually a couple great video essays on YouTube about his positioning, his performance. I've watched, left a comment on a few of them. I suggest you go check them out. There's a bunch of them out there. But I've been super thrilled with Dobes' performance so far, Jesse. And I think this is just another big test, right? Going up against Ovechkin, who's chasing that Gretzky record, and the Washington Capitals, who've been rolling. Logan Thompson has been one of the best goalies in the NHL this year. I feel he gets slept on. But this is going to be a challenge for Dobes. But I think every start has been so far. And, he's just continuing to prove himself.
He is, and isn't it so remarkable that we would have such faith in him only 2 games into his NHL career in earnest, right? But through his play, there's just something about it where it's like we believe in him, the Habs team believes in him, and it's really affecting how they're playing in front of him right now. Like, we can't really underestimate like the confidence that it gives this very young team kind of on that mental side of the game. We've seen it how they've kind of responded accordingly when knowing that they have Dobes behind there. Again, just from his play, his positioning, looking so sound, it is really just, garnering just a lot of kind of swag for this team right now, where they know that they can go out, play their game out in front of them, knowing that Dobes has them covered in back, so absolutely phenomenal, just that trickle down effect that he's having.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. He looks so calm, and like I mentioned in a comment that I left on one of these Dobes analysis videos, that he looks very calm, but he also has that intensity, right? Like, he never overshoots his post. He's always right to the post. He always covers up when he feels he needs to. He feels like he absorbs every shot. The rebound control is great. But then at the same time, he can rob a breakaway and fire a pass to the opposite blue line like it's nothing, right? I love the intensity, the fact that he is just a competitor. And that's what we've heard at every level with him. He's intense. He wants to win. But also, he's not sacrificing good positioning and good technique for that. So it's going to be amazing to watch him go through. As I'm going to check the comments here, and let's see. Well, we got a good result in the poll, Jesse. 82%, 83% of the fans say that Montreal will beat the Washington Capitals. We got an optimistic fan base, and that's what we love to see, because we are optimistic here. And I'm taking a look through the chat as well. I see Wazo Premier. I see some other names. Tyler. A lot of people that I do recognize. I wanted to read out a comment here from John Poirier, because I really liked it. He said, "Hey, Jesse, Josh, this is my first live session with you folks. Love the show, especially your ability to find positives that some of us don't see right away." That's what we're all about here. All about spreading the love, being positive about this team. Not that we're always super positive, but Jesse, with this team, it's no fun to crap on the negatives of the team. Sometimes you gotta call it out, but finding these positives, looking forward to the future. I think this team is one of the best teams in the league to have that attitude for.
Thank you, John. We see your comments, and we appreciate you so much. And, and the reason is like that we've kind of maintained that attitude is because we kind of see it again. As I mentioned on the show the other day, like, why do I have faith in Kent Hughes? Because he drafted Lane Hutson. He's going to be in my good graces for a good minute because of that. We see what this guy's doing, and it's one move, right? But it's one of many that have really shown that forward sort of thinking approach, being able to adapt to today's NHL. It was a brave move, and it really just shows how this team is in such good hands. We've really been able to study. We started this show really in that Kent Hughes era. And we're actually just so lucky, we feel, as a show, but also, as fans of this team, to have such a GM that's really so thoughtful in their approach, always having that long-term vision, having certain principles that they really stick to all the time. So it's just been such a pleasure, right, as we're on this ride. And obviously, we're just really getting cooking right now.
Oh, yeah, we are just getting cooking. Will I play that? Oh, no, hold on. Where is it? There we go.
Someone cooked here.
Oh boy, I can't wait. There's going to be so much more coming up. We'll get into Kent Hughes in just a bit, but yeah, he's been so great. We all have faith, Jesse, and for good reason, honestly. He's been such a good GM so far. I can't wait to see what's next, but we want to talk about the next thing here. One of the top things, you just mentioned him, and that is Lane Hutson. I see a lot of positive comments here. Dobes for president. I liked him in the cover, and you guys do a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate all the people here in the chat. Great job, boys. Go Habs, go, from Chris Agostino. My gosh, the love is unbelievable in the stream today, guys. Thank you so much. Let's hop into Lane Hutson, because I want to talk about this. No, not you, Kent. We've had enough of you. We'll get to you later. I'm sorry. I never have enough Kent Hughes. This, by the way, every article, everything we're referencing today is linked down below. There's a lot of links in the description. If you want to see everything we've done, go check out the original authors, as we always include the link to them, because as you should, right? But this is from Daily Faceoff today and the recent Calder rankings, and well, there's a certain guy here at number 1. We got Lane Hutson. They say Hutson isn't Montreal's time on ice leader. It's Mike Matheson at 24-28, but Hudson's close. He's only 2 minutes behind, and he's top 50 in the whole NHL, which is absurd as a rookie. He's averaging more than 18 minutes a night just at 5-on-5, while sitting in a tie with Suzuki with 13 power play points. That's insane that our rookie defenseman is tied for the team lead in power play points. No matter the situation, he finds a way to be effective. Since December 1st, he's 4th in scoring among all defenders with 17 points in 17 games, despite playing the 52nd most minutes. He's having such an outstanding season as a minute-munching defenseman, and that should earn him some serious Calder consideration if he can keep things rolling. The Lane train keeps rolling, Jesse. I'm seeing a lot of other places, including the official Habs Twitter, posting Lane train stuff. I don't know, we're maybe not the most unique, but we definitely posted it first, just saying. However, talking about Lane Hutson, it's not just this. I mean, we mentioned him in the video, yesterday, I think, that he is the first defenseman since Nick Lidstrom and Bobby Orr to be leading rookie scoring as a defenseman this far into a season. There's so many things you can point to with Lane Hutson, but the thing, I know we talk about his offense, but the thing that surprises me maybe the most this year is how good he's looked on the defensive end as well.
It's really what we're haven't expected at all. It's like, for him just to be so good offensively, but then to also be so good defensively. Since December 1st, rather, he's fourth among all defenders in the NHL for points, getting 17 points in 17 games. Like, this guy is off to a phenomenal start, having better rookie numbers than Cale Makar, than Kent Hughes. If you look at his trajectory right now, like, he's shaping up to be a better defenseman than them. Obviously, there's a lot of hockey still yet to be played, but we can't be taking this away from these young players. Like, having a better halfway season to a rookie season, these aren't cherry pick stats. This is his hard work. This is a skill. This is the type of player that we have in Hutson. And obviously, it's amazing to follow. But Josh, like, I just look forward to every single game watching him play. Like, how can you not when he's being so creative? You never quite know what to expect from him next. He not only is he producing, he's helping other players, but the next thing is like, you just never know, like, what's this going to be his next move? What's he going to kind of do next? Because you feel like he's just getting at the beginning of what he's really capable of. And that's what really makes it so exciting.
Yeah, like, this is his rookie season, right? If this was like a $7 million defenseman that was in his 5th, 6th season right now, we'd be like, dang, yeah, he's producing pretty well. This is a rookie. Like, I feel like that's lost sometimes. This is a 5'10" rookie who had so many question marks coming into the league, thinking like, he might not be able to hold his own because of his size. He might get bullied. He doesn't get bullied. He searches out the contact. He looks for conflict sometimes. He fights with his body, looking strong against other teams' top defensemen. It's been unbelievable to watch, and I see a lot of people in chat very happy with the Lane train. I even see some people saying Bogdan. Maybe a future pairing? I don't know, right? We'll see with Bogdan, but I love that we get representation every single stream and video from the Bogdan fan club, Jesse. We are the inaugural members, but our chat, you're all honorary inaugural members as well, because as soon as Bogdan comes over, we'll be talking a lot more about him. But yeah, it's been unbelievable to watch Lane Hutson do what he's done so far. And I'm just going to put up a poll. We're going to do a lot of polls here today. We want to get the fans, the chat involved in this. Will Lane win the Calder? Simple question. Yes or no, fans? Go answer right now. Because, Jesse, I know we talked about this before. I'm only going to leave that up just for a little bit because, there's some other stuff we got to get into, including trade talks, all this stuff. But if you had to call it right now, is he winning the Calder?
He is. And I say sorry right now to our viewer in the past who asked me the same question. And, I wanted to hedge my bets, a little bit earlier on the season. Obviously, this is before Laine. This is before the team kind of cooking, which is obviously helping Lane Hutson and everything else. But I felt like, okay, at that point in time, like, the odds are probably not, as much as I've been such a big Lane Hutson supporter. Even since seeing him in the NHL, I always believed, just from obviously covering him so much in the NCAA, like, that this guy is just a, complete stud of a player, a true professional, in and out. The way it's shaping up, like, that's why I have to say now, and why I've kind of been bringing it up. Like, if he continues along this pace that he's doing right now, absolutely he's winning the Calder. He's getting more points while still being so much more defensively responsible. And you have to feel like he's actually just getting started. Like, there's going to be a lot of goals from him in that second part of the season. The first part was about kind of figuring out how to do it. He already knew how to do the assists. But now the second part of the season, it's all going to be about him learning to create for himself. Making that one move at the blue line, which he does, that shimmy shake, going right into the slot, and then he's going to be looking for his own shot. He's going to be picking corners. He's got a really accurate release there. So I think that's the big thing, is like, the way that he's so smart, the way that he adapts to the game, he just comes to each game like a better version of himself. And I think it's not only because of the skill, but probably that mental, that dog aspect, but also just how intelligent he is, that'll probably allow him to surpass some of his peers in Celebrini and Mitchkov.
Yeah,
and I would love that look.
Yeah. I think it's not ridiculous. You know what? I might as well call it too. Why not? Like, at this point, if the voting was today, I think Lane Hutson would win it. And so naturally, we're at the halfway point of the season. Why would that not also hold true for the rest of the way? If you assume that these guys are all going to perform at the same level, not to mention that Montreal might be competing for a playoff spot. Now, the same thing for the Flyers, but I think like the only guy right now that I think Celebrini's closer to Hutson than Mitchkov at this moment is what I'm saying, right? Like, I think Celebrini is an absolutely amazing player, putting up numbers as an 18-year-old that you just don't see for a guy his age. But as we've seen in the Calder thing before, being younger doesn't often, like, in theory, it gives you better points because you're doing more at a younger age. But, like, we saw a guy like Kaprizov win at the age of, 25, 24, something like that. So, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day with voters. And like I see some comments in chat, if Lane Hutson can break those Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes defenseman scoring numbers, how would it not be him, right? I think the only way he loses, if he continues on this pace, is if Celebrini does something unbelievable the rest of the way, which honestly I wouldn't put out of the question, but I think we're both here to say, like, yeah, why not? He's our pick right now, and 82% of the chat also agrees with that, Jesse, which is pretty unbelievable. I was a bit surprised with that, but you know what? That's why we're here. We're here, we're Habs fans. We're positive about the future. Cannot wait to see. And I guarantee you, if Leafs fans are watching this stream, if Leafs Digest is watching this stream, which they sometimes do, I'll be getting some messages on my phone very soon saying we're crazy, but that's okay. But Jesse, I think it's time to get into some Kent Hughes stuff. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Kent. So Kent, he said a lot yesterday. Now, we covered a lot of this in the video yesterday, but we're going to revisit it because I want to hear your guys' thoughts, you Habs fans here, or if you're not a Habs fan and you're just tuning in, hit the subscribe button now so you can leave your thoughts in chats, because chat is subscriber-only mode. We have a great chat in here, a lot of engagement. So, look, if you're watching this anyway, just check if you're subscribed. We've got daily Montreal Canadiens content. We are your home for all the latest Habs news, rumors, reports, trade talks, all that stuff. This is the spot to be. It's completely free as well to hit the subscribe button. So, Jesse, let's get into this. Let's talk about Kent Hughes. So, he had a bunch of things to say, but notably, he said we have 22 games before the deadline. We still have a lot to learn. We're happy we're playing well, but we have 40 games played, and we're just one game above 500. I don't want to celebrate. We haven't accomplished anything, and we want to see how things shake up before the trade deadline and make a decision from there. He went on to say that we're on the right track with the players we have and with the players we have coming, but we don't want to be overconfident and like other teams like the Sabres coming close to the playoffs and then faltering, and Detroit too. They're getting better, but we don't want to be overconfident. And I really like this this mindset, Jesse, of, we still haven't proven anything. Any team can get hot, just like any team can go cold, especially a young team like Montreal. They might go on a cold stretch, and that wouldn't be shocking, right? I don't expect them necessarily to stay on this crazy pace that they've been on for the last 25 games for the entire second half of the season. There's going to be ups and downs, and I really like how Kent Hughes is approaching this with, like, listen, we still have, like, we played 40 games. We still have another 22. Like, we've only played 2/3 of the games up to the trade deadline. There's a still full third of that season before the trade deadline left to see. So what are your thoughts on this mindset? We'll get into some potential targets in a bit, but I really like that this is what he's saying. He's not gambling anything away. He still clearly has eyes on the future here.
And this is how you don't become the Buffalo Sabres. It's by having Kent Hughes as your general manager. And I think it's just so key, like so important to learn from these other mistakes from other teams. Take a measured approach to it. Absolutely the right message right now, of which Nick Suzuki had mentioned just quite recently a presser that he's on board with. When he was asked, like, what did he think about this? He says, like, you know what? The guys are ready to fight till the end of the season. Like, he's right. We haven't proved anything, but the guys are ready to fight toward the end of the season. And when you see that video of him, he just has this kind of like calm confidence about him. And I feel like the Habs kind of feel this way as well. Just a quick Nick Suzuki rant. It's like, it's moments like this that really assure me that we picked the right captain for this team, is because he really, you can tell just from the way that he's saying it, like, he means business. Like, this team doesn't intend on mailing it in. They actually intend on fighting all the way until the rest of this season. And this is the only way that they're going to get in. This is the only way that they have a shot. So for me, that kind of shows us that we have that right leader. And I think it's sometimes okay for us to have a little bit more of that calm guy. A lot is to be said about Nick. He doesn't speak much and different things. I think sometimes being calm with that young team, having that confidence still all the same, while having the work ethic that he kind of puts in, and then the skill. He is a perfect fit for a captain to kind of lead this team to the next generation. I think we're doing that. The conversation's like, is he a 1C? Is he not? Like, that's going out the window. Like, this guy's a point per game player, but it's also these intangibles that he's bringing early on in his career, which really gives me a lot of hope as the leader of this team, that this team actually is going to fight and mean business for the rest of this year.
And there's been a lot of talk about how the whole team, and Suzuki included, because again, like you said, he's the head of that. He's the leader of this locker room right now. There's a lot of guys who are so bought in, right? The attitude from everyone, whether it's Slafkovsky, whether it's Hutson, whether it's Kirby, whether it's Caufield, like we see every single day, even a guy like Laine, these guys are all there for each other. And when we talk a bit about Jake Evans in a minute, like, we had heard that same thing, right? Like, about all these guys wanting to be there, wanting to work together for an ultimate goal. Are you a team or a club? That's something that Friedman mentions. Like, and the Habs are a team. It's not just a hockey club. Sorry, Utah, I guess. But anyway, like, these guys want to fight for each other day in and day out. And when we look at the way Kent Hughes is talking about this team, and I think that's sort of reflected as well. Like, he knows that these guys are building relationships. You don't want to be overzealous, not only in trading for someone like maybe someone that's a quick fix for this, or like, oh my gosh, this looks really good. Like, we'll get into a couple of these guys in just a few minutes. Not just rushing into those decisions, looking at how it affects the locker room too, right? And there's other aspects of this team. It's like a guy like Christian Dvorak is well liked in the locker room, one of Cole Caufield's best buddies. He probably won't be a Hab next year, but these are little considerations. So having Kent Hughes at the helm, I think, is very, very good. As I'm going to end the poll in chat, Jesse, I asked, do you agree with Kent Hughes' mindset of not being too overconfident heading into the deadline? And my goodness, did the fans agree? 99%, 98 to 99% say, yeah, they agree. Everyone. I think there was like one person who voted that said they don't agree. That is crazy, right? There's so much support right now for Kent Hughes, and he's always saying the right things as well. Now it's a matter of whether he can execute, because he's been fairly quiet at a lot of trade deadlines in the past. The last 2 years, yeah, there have been some trades, but the most busy trade deadline he's had as a GM was back in 2022, of course. He made that Brett Kulak trade that landed the conditional second-round pick that turned into Lane Hutson. He landed Justin Barron in a second for Arturi Lehkonen. The Ben Sherratt trade was that same year where the Habs got a first and Ty Smilanic had a fourth-round pick, and then Michael McNiven, but also the original Tyler Toffoli trade, sending him away from Montreal, that landed us Emil Heineman too. So looking back at this 2022 deadline, it was his most busy, and we got Lane Hutson and Emil Heineman out of that, plus some other picks, plus Justin Barron, which turned into 1-for-1 Alex Carrier. So we have Alex Carrier, Lane Hutson, and Emil Heineman, among probably some other guys I'm forgetting, including, like, I don't know who that 2023 first-round pick was off the top of my head, but, like, there's so much good that came out of that busy deadline for Kent that I'm just incredibly confident in his ability to manufacture something in the future. But let's just get into some of the stuff that we've been talking about, Jesse. Now, we'll get into Jake Evans again in a minute, but there have been a lot of things coming out recently about how, certain names may be on the trade market, right? And, there's a lot of names here and there that might be moved, but the first guy I want to talk about, because this may be the most unrealistic target, but I want to see the fans' reaction to this. According to Renaud Lavoie, if Colorado can't extend Mikko Rantanen, they will trade him. Look, Moose, we've compared him to Slafkovsky in the past. That graph has kind of gone away this year, as Slav is still, like, he's still playing well, but he's not quite up to that Mikko Rantanen third-year production. It is what it is. But, like, the thing with Rantanen is, Jesse, he's an expiring contract. He's a free agent after this year, and I'm willing to bet he's going to ask for, like, $13+ million, right? $13 million. If you're Montreal, if Colorado can't extend him. By the way, I'm almost certain Colorado's going to extend him. This is why this is the first one we're talking about. I'm almost certain Colorado's going to extend him because, like, they're going to do everything they can to keep this core together. This Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, and now, of course, Mackenzie Blackwood and net. They have a bunch of other guys. But if for some reason they can't, is this a guy you would even think about targeting in a trade this year, or would you just aim to try and get him in the offseason? But, like, I guess if another team trades for him, he might extend with them, right? That's probably one of the prerequisites. I don't know. I don't think it's realistic, but his name keeps coming up among Habs fans, so I feel like we got to talk about it.
For sure. And we don't see the trade and resigns all the time. But if you're Kent Hughes, or getting, a trade and then the extension right there, that would be the ideal situation. Obviously, that doesn't happen as much, kind of in season and everything else. But you got to kick tires if you're Kent Hughes, because you got to start realizing it's the truth. I know we're taking a long time to really believe it as Habs fans, but players are going to want to start coming here. We're turning that corner in the rebuild. I think the management of Kent Hughes, we've noticed Martin St. Louis has been a factor for players like Laine want to come over, but people are going to want to play with Lane Hutson, Ivan Demidov, Patrick Laine, Nick Suzuki being a point-per-game guy, the evolution of Caufield, obviously into a phenomenal player. People are going to want to play with these players. It's not going to matter if we're in the North anymore, right? So I think that's something interesting where a lot of times in the past, we just kind of give up on some of these big-name free agents, where now's a time where let's see where they're at. What's their temperature check on them maybe wanting to come to Montreal and everything, because it's going to take some time, and we're not there all the way yet. But these are some exciting players we have here in Montreal. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, people are going to want to be around it. That's going to probably be one of the best things in our favor of trying to sign these kind of extensions with these star players. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like, to get star players, you kind of need that to begin with. That's why the Habs are looking to kind of build from within. Of course, I think it would maybe be rushing things just a little bit, as, like, players like this don't come around all the time, but I think we want to develop just a little bit more before kind of adding in, considering the cost, what we would need to give out, all the considerations. And of course, Rantanen's, an amazing player. It's not like we're saying we want to kind of turn our nose up at him, but at the same time, I think that there's a timing for adding a player of his ilk, a 100-point type player that he is. I'd love to have him. I just got to make sure the timing and what we're giving up is right.
I think you're absolutely bang on. Like, look, I would love to have him on the team, right? Obviously, this dude's one of the best players in the world, right? But at the same time, like, especially for an in-season trade, he's going to cost an astronomical price, even though he's expiring, right? Because, again, if you're trading for him, you're going to want some kind of, at least as close to a guarantee as you can get that he will extend with the team that he's going to, right? So, the cost for him, I assume Colorado, even if it gets to that point, they're starting with Slav and probably like a first-round pick and probably other, and while, like, objectively getting a guy like this is worth trading some insane haul, of crazy good prospects and draft capital, it just doesn't make sense in the timeline right now. I'm bang on with you, and the fans are also in agreement. Like, I'd love to have him on the team, but, if you're going to do anything with Rantanen, just see if he becomes a UFA after this year and see what happens, right? And look, I don't want to rush into this. Again, no, there's no question about it. We would love him on the Montreal Canadiens, but I just don't think it makes sense right now. 80% of the fans agree. There's no way the Habs would even try to trade for Rantanen this year. It would take too much. Maybe Kent Hughes calls if it comes to that. I don't think it comes to that, but I think it's just very fun to discuss that at the very least. But yeah, Jesse, I want to take a minute to go through the comments. We got a lot of comments here. Someone saying Philip Méchard was the draft pick from Calgary. There you go. He's been having a decent year in Laval already. There's a lot of other things going on in that 2022 trade deadline that was unbelievable. We got Joseph Donovan, loyal channel member. Good to see you, Joseph, in the chat. Wow, a live show from the boys. Yeah, I know it's not normal on Thursdays, right? But we got 450 people in here right now and really appreciate it. By the way, 450 people in here. If you guys just wouldn't mind leaving a like down below, it's completely free. It's one click. You get to see a number go up. Everyone loves to do that. And it helps push us out to other Habs fans, the fans of all kinds of other teams. So if you want to share the love here, support us, just leave a like. That's the best thing you could do, honestly. I'd really, really appreciate it if we could hit, let's try and hit 150, right? I think we can hit 150. That'd be cool. But yeah, we got some comments here. We got people saying we need to be patient. Rantanen's going to charge $12 million a year. After Hughes presser, there's no way they make that trade, right? Teams building top six from within. Most trades will be for depth and strengthening the bottom six. That's actually an interesting comment there from RPM. Jesse, do you believe Montreal has what it takes to build a championship caliber top six strictly from within now? Or do you think there will be at least one trade to come that'll maybe bolster it? Because I think the top six, like 6 pure forwards in the top six, I'd be willing to bet that by the time Montreal's willing to compete, at least one trade's going to be made to fill one of those spots.
It depends on how Dach kind of fills out. He's now starting to trend in the right direction, and Slav as well. But we see if both of them pan out well, with Laine in the mix, with Demidov, we got a solid top six. Zooks, Caufield, Slav. We're talking about Dach. We're talking about Demidov and Laine. That's a nice top six right there. But that's on the premise that Dach is panning out and that Slav is performing like a first line player really should, right? I think that Slav will get there. I think the jury's a little bit more out on Dach still, but we're seeing those positive signs. We knew it'd take time from the injuries to kind of get there. But that being said, Josh, we know teams are in flux. I think that with a Rantanen trade is you want to build up a little bit more, and kind of the recipe often for the rebuilds is, you get those draft capital, you start making a little bit of those smaller trades. But then when you're really kind of close, you do like those Toronto Raptors type move, like a trade to kind of take you over the top for your top six. If the Montreal Canadiens are a little bit further in the rebuild, absolutely, you go for Rantanen because this is really kind of a clincher type of move at this point in time. You don't want to be too quick, as we're talking about. You want to be patient with these kind of big trades. It's getting there, though, which is really positive. And obviously, we want Kirby Dach to succeed, and we believe that he can.
Yep, 100%. I think he can get there. You're starting to see him come into his own right now, of course, after that brutal knee injury. But yeah, we have the rest of the season to see what goes on, right? There's no rush to do a trade like that. Not to mention any in-season trade, especially near the deadline, is going to come with a sense of urgency with a bunch of other teams trying to outbid you for the certain players, right? So the offseason is going to be bigger. Montreal has a ton of draft capital to play with. Again, draft capital becomes more urgent as you get towards the draft, as teams are much more eager to move up if they see that one of their prime targets is available. Just like Montreal moved up for Michael Hage, like Minnesota moved up for Zboya. This desire for draft picks goes up around draft season. So I think that would be when Kent Hughes would be at his smartest to make a trade. And it seems like that's what's going to happen. But Jesse, we got a new channel member. We got Andrew Boone. Welcome to the channel member club, Andrew Boone. Send your new channel member emojis in the chat there. I'm sure we got a few channel members in the chat here as well. We got Kirby. We got a lot of stuff in there. Demigod, Lane, Train, Patrick, Laine. Send them all in the chat. I like this new Laine one. It's very, very fun. But send it all in the chat. Thank you so much, Andrew Boone. Everyone, shout out Andrew Boone. And we got Richard Martin saying you guys have the best hockey show on the internet. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Richard. Really appreciate that. And we got Blanco. Ahoy, Blanco. Slovakian. One of our most loyal viewers out there. Slovakian Blanco. And we got Tim Meunier in the chat as well. Another channel member with the Laine emote. I want to see all those emotes from all the channel members in here, Jesse. Oh, I love it. We got people in here. We're talking some good stuff right now. But we'll move on from Rantanen. I want to talk about another guy that in an article you sent me today that is also linked down below. This is an interesting one. So let's just bring it up. Let's just talk about it. So, there's a lot of names on the trade market. Did I take any pictures? No. Okay. So anyway, there's a lot of players in the trade market right now. We've heard Rantanen, we've heard JT Miller, we've heard Elias Pettersson, who's a big name as well, but again will cost a lot of money. But in this article from the Hockey Writers that is linked down below, go check it out, give the author the credit that they deserve. They say a more likely scenario has Hughes going for a center with less name recognition, Ryan Strome. Now, this is not a report. This is just one writer's opinion, and that is what it is. And I think it's really interesting, though, because Ryan Strome, he's a name that I think we all know, but definitely flies under the radar, right? But the problem with him is he's making $5 million this year and over the next 2 years, right? And you have guys like Xhekaj and Beck. This will buy them time to develop, which I think is also something we should be doing. We shouldn't be rushing 19, 20-year-olds to be in this on this roster. It doesn't really matter if it takes until they're 21, 22, right? But when we're looking at a guy like Ryan Strome, who's making $5 million, make that bigger, $5 million this year, $5 million next, $5 million the year after, who just turned 31, and just turned 31? Well, turned 31 a few months ago. Oh, he has the same birthday as my brother. Interesting. But he's like a career, 40 to 50. His career high is about 60 points, 59 with the Rangers. One of those like 15 to 20 goal guys who's going to get you 40 to 50 points every year. Jesse, he's an interesting name to talk about and the type of guy that I would like to have on the Montreal Canadiens, but at the price tag of $5 million per season, do you see him even being worth more than Jake Evans, especially since Evans is on pace for about the same amount of points? And I think we could get Evans for much cheaper, and his age makes a lot more sense for the Habs timeline.
And all the other intangibles that Evan brings, with the PK as well. And obviously just that cohesion that this room already has, which I'm careful with because, as you mentioned, like same production as Jake Evans, except Jake Evans is making $1.7 million this year. We know that that's going to go up. We're going to get into that in just a moment of what that kind of looks like kind of going forward for him. But, I mean, you have to make a play of keeping Jake Evans at that kind of cost. I'm happy that Strome was able to kind of find his niche in the NHL, absolutely. But, for that cost right now, the chemistry, the fit really needs to be right. It seems to be Kent Hughes' specialty. And I think there's a lot of kind of almost insider information that really kind of goes into making those decisions. You need to know a lot about the player, their personality, and a lot of these different things, which I think is so fundamental in really assessing these fits here. But for right now, I think with Kent Hughes, he knows where he wants to spend the money on really those core assets. And I don't know if Strome's really filling into that.
No, I don't think so either. And I think most of the chat's also going to disagree. So let's check the poll. Wait and see what you guys have to say there. But yeah, this article says that Strome might be an interesting target. I don't necessarily agree. Again, I just think, he's the kind of guy that you do love to have on, a championship caliber team, right? But, especially as, a bottom six guy. But he's not one of those top six guys at this point. He's not going to be playing your second line center. He's going to be third or fourth line. And, if you bring him in, you're assuming that Evans is probably gone, right? So, he'd be an Evans replacement. If Evans is completely gone, maybe, but then when we look at him in 2 years when he's 32, 33, and he's making $5 million, you're probably going to flip him at the deadline or something. It might be too much money. Anyway, I don't think he necessarily fits, but it's an interesting thought because there's a lot of names out there that I think we're just not really talking about too much as Habs fans. I'm going to end that poll. It was a quick poll, but I think most people, I see a lot of messages in the chat saying this doesn't make sense. I think we're pretty much in agreement with most people here, Jesse. I don't love this idea, but it is interesting to say the least. So we got Strome doesn't make sense. If we want to go for veterans, rather sign Bennett at the end of the season, 2 to 3 years, 6.5 mil. Hey, that's an interesting idea, right? If the Habs start to make that push towards the playoffs this year, another solid forward who's going to get you a decent amount of points to put you over the edge, you never know. So there's a lot of very interesting stuff there. We got Joe the Snoop saying, morning from Sydney. I don't know if that's Nova Scotia or Australia. Either way, welcome into the show. I think Kent Hughes should try to keep things the way they are at present until the end of the season, especially with the possibility of a wild card. I think that, rushing things is a bad idea, but Jesse, you never know. Trades can present themselves at the weirdest of times, and we've seen Montreal play distributor in some trades. They might sneak into something in a way that you might not expect. So very interesting. And I see Tim saying, thanks for saying the last name, Josh. No problem, Tim. I'm glad I said it right. And Andrew Boone saying we need another left-handed center. We do have a lot of right-hand centers, Jesse, but right-hand centers are kind of a somewhat rare commodity in the league. I think more rare than some people think. So I don't know. Do you think we need another left-hand center? I know it's really just Dvorak and like Newhook if you give him the center, but I'm kind of okay with what we got in terms of handedness.
It's not ideal, but with Kirby Dach, it's going to depend on how that turns out. I'm still not completely sold as him being a center. I think there's a very good likelihood we are going for that 2C in the future. Maybe we're looking for that in that kind of move there, but yet to be remain. I mean, that jury's still out on Kirby Dach. As long as he's producing, getting those points, I don't care what side he is.
Yeah, who cares? I mean, like, look, if you're getting points and you're winning faceoffs, at the end of the day, that is what it is, right? So, it is what it is. We got Joseph saying, I'm from Sydney, Nova Scotia, live in Glace Bay now. My brother played a tournament in Glace Bay once. I didn't visit. He played in a baseball tournament. Very interesting. And we got Noya Kusano saying, sorry late to the party. I'm Dobes? Wait, what? I'm not sure what that says. I'm trying to read this. Hold on. Focus. I think you're saying, does anyone have any concerns about burnout as far as Hutson's TOI? My apologies. Quickly before we move on to the Jake Evans stuff, Jesse, you got any concerns about Lane Train's burnout in terms of minutes? Because so far, this dude looks like he has some of the best cardio in the league, honestly.
Yeah, he really does. Spending a lot of time in the gym and even in the off season, right? Like that whole family is prolific for the amount of time that they put on the off season, on the ice, with their father being part of the training as well. So I think he's got it covered. Second in the Habs right now, only to Matheson really in ice time. But I think that Hudson's got it more than covered.
Absolutely. Oh, we got lots of people in here. Joe the Snoop saying he's from the one on the other side of the planet, so I take it Sydney, Australia. We got Pisencha here. What he at, AS? Good to see you. Bye. Good to see the Newfies representing in the chat. Sure. I was down there for a few weeks, but I'm back here now. See, it comes out when I start talking to the people in the chat. Jesse, it is what it is. It doesn't come out too often, but I see fellow Newfies in the chat. Back to my real accent voice. Anyway, it is what it is here. I've said that 4 times. Let me find something else to say. So it is what it is. It's 5 times now. Let's move on to Jake Evans. Nope, that's not it. This one. So, this was from 32 Thoughts. This is screenshotted from Elliot's 32 Thoughts, and he just mentions the thing. Anthony Stewart's father would always ask, are you a team or a club? And when Caufield and Matheson immediately chased after Lane Hutson's first goal puck, that told you everything you need to know. He had Alex Carey, was a great addition, but he capped it all off by saying, as Renaud Lavoie reported, the team is working on extending Jake Evans. Both sides want something done. Always a good sign. Very good sign. Now, Kent Hughes, Jesse, of course, declined to comment on extensions. He said that's just been a principle since he took charge. He does not talk to the media, talk to anyone about the talks that he has with the players about contracts behind closed doors. I really love that policy. You kind of wish you heard a bit more about it, but to hear it come from Renaud Lavoie and then Friedman echoing saying, yep, this is what I've heard as well. I really like this, right? And I know there's still a possibility he gets traded, but I'm just curious now at how much money is he going to get? What are your thoughts on even Friedman saying yeah, I think this extension is probably going to happen if they can come to terms?
This is amazing to hear because in my mind, I've been thinking that a trade is very likely in this situation, considering how much money he's probably set to get in the very near future, right? So, this is amazing news. And you have to think if they are kind of coming together, that Evans, again, is taking some sort of team-friendly deal. It's just my only question is, I know that he's going to want term here. And my opinion, Kent Hughes isn't going to want to give 4 years. He'll give it if he has to, I think, recognizing the value that Evans has. But he doesn't, it's one of those things where the player wants to get term. It's probably one of his last deals, if not his last deal in the NHL. You can get that. But from the Habs, even with the cap kind of going up and everything, it's more the term. Again, for bottom 6 players, I think that Kent Hughes is of the opinion where he doesn't like giving out those longer term sort of deals, right? So Jake Evans, we know what we can kind of expect from him in a lot of ways. You have to feel, though, I think it's fair to say we love Jake Evans. The offense will probably go down. That shooting percentage, we've seen it, just a case study in the NHL where if it's obviously much above the average, then it's just a case that it is probably going to go down to the mean there. Josh, do you think that he's okay, doing a 4-year deal? I know I've asked you this in the past. I don't think that Kent wants to do the 4. That's why, I'm happy to hear this, but still, I think the trade is still a possibility here.
I still think a trade's a possibility. I think it's crazy to say that it's completely off the table because objectively, he's going to have a ton of value on the market. I think Kent obviously is maybe going to want maybe a somewhat shorter term deal, but I don't think he's going to want to stray away if he can get a good deal out of Jake Evans either, right? Jake Evans is well within his rights to demand $4+ million a season. I don't think Hughes will want him for that price over the course of 4 years, right? So we'll have to wait and see. Because, I mean, we clearly see that they're in the business of having decent deals, right? We're talking about a team now where every one of their star young players is inked under Nick Suzuki's captaincy contract, when objectively in a couple of years, we could, like, already we're saying Guhle's probably worth more than what his upcoming contract is going to be at 5.5, right? Caufield's right now, I would say, worth more than the 7.75 that he's making, right? So, like, we already got some bargain deals, but I think Kent Hughes is going to want something else here. But very interesting, and I think a lot of the chat's talking here. 4x4 max, 4x4.25. I got an interesting point on that in a minute, but Jesse, I don't want to let this this super chat run out here, so I gotta read this first. It's a great question from Ethan Mods. Ethan been a wonderful supporter of the channel as well. Ethan, you've donated so many times before. Thank you so much. If you have Demidov on the team next season and he's dominant, who do you move off of the first power play to make room for him? And we got a lot of people talking in the comments here, and a few of them are saying my answer, Jesse. My answer would be Juraj Slafkovsky, but my answer would also be, it depends on the chemistry, on the fit, because Slaf's big body in front of the net, even though he doesn't always get a point on them, he's had a big effect on the power play goals just by being there, that presence in front of the net. You could replace that with someone else, but if you put Demidov out there with Caufield, Laine, Suzuki, and Hutson, who's going to be that big body? You don't really have one, right? But at the same time, objectively, that's my answer. I think it does depend, but if you had to pick one of those guys between Slaf, Laine, Caufield, Suzuki, Hutson, who is it if Demidov really is that good right away?
It is Slaf in that case. No, Demidov is looking like a power play merchant in his very limited time in SK, and that's kind of continuing there. The big thing with Slaf, though, is he's actually a very good power play player. I just don't feel like he's been used in the best possible ways. I've gotten on the soapbox to say that I want him as a one-time option a little bit too. I like him in front of the net and everything else, but if you actually watch him on the power play, making, recovering pucks along the boards, making smart passes, he's very good. And these are important plays on your power play, making sure your crisp passes. I mean, the entire Montreal power play has looked good, I will say. But Slaf has kind of played an important part of that. I would like to see him utilized as a little bit more of a shot threat, not always just in front of the net there. I feel like that's a little bit too stagnant given the skill set that he has there. But at the same time, yeah, for points efficiencies, it'd have to be Slaf that you're taking off for right now.
Yeah, I think so. It's a great question, though, Ethan. We got a lot of people talking in the chat here about what they would do, what they like about Slaf, what they don't. It's very interesting. And a lot of people talking about Evans, but we got one final thing we got to get into on the Jake Evans front. And before we get into that, I'm just going to say the thing I said to you before the show, and I want you guys to think of this as well, as 85% of people, Jesse, in the poll of Evans trade versus extension voted for an extension. 85%. That's very interesting. So here's my question now, right? Let's assume you get Jake Evans for $4.25 million for 3 seasons, right? And I know that feels like a lot, right? Because when you're paying for a bottom 6 guy, you usually don't want to exceed that $4 million mark for a bottom 6 guy if you can help it. However, if I were to say to a bunch of teams, like, you are guaranteed to get one of the best penalty killing forwards in the league, you're guaranteed some bottom 6 stability, a guy who's been with the team for a long time, a guy that clearly wants to stay here and is bought into the vision you have, and a guy that really never makes mistakes. So he just gives you that overall stability and a great defensive element and decent on the faceoff dot. Objectively, compared to other players in like the $3.5 million range, is what Jake Evans brings on that front, that stability, that extra level of defense, is that worth that extra $1 million to you over the course of every year? I think it is, right? Like, that's kind of where my mind's at. Like, will we ever look back at a $4 million contract? I think the only way, if he gets $4 million, that we'll look back and say that was a mistake is if he goes back to being like 25, 30 points a year. Then you'll start to say it's underwhelming, but even then his defense will make up for it a bit. Like we're seeing from Anderson this year. He's probably not worth the 5.5, but he's much closer than he was before. I'm just saying I think Evans' game will age better than people think. Even if he's overpaid by $500,000, $750,000 per year, I don't think it matters too much, especially considering the bargains we have elsewhere.
For a lot of comparables, that is a pretty good estimate of over a 3-year deal of probably what it would be like for Jake Evans. And again, the term is kind of the big thing. Like, I'd almost pay a little bit more, even though definitely we are pushing it there. That's fair, but he is driving a hard bargain, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what's kind of complicating everything right now. But I would rather have that shorter term. Obviously, we see his age. We also see the young prospects of when they're kind of coming in, because we don't want to logjam these bottom. These are really good spots for them to develop before kind of being ready for those kind of top 6 role. So that's another part of the reasoning for me that I want to keep him on a little bit of lesser term. Like for me, I've been saying like term is the biggest thing on all this, because I'll get like, that'll be the one thing that stops an extension from happening is where Jake Evans wants more than 3 years. You can't fault him for doing that, but I could very much get if Kent Hughes, no, you don't want to sign too much of those lengthy deals for your bottom 6 guys, no matter how valuable they are. The thing about Kent Hughes is like, he's a shrewd negotiator. He knows his numbers, and he's going to have a certain point, and he's not going to flex too much on that, right? So I want them to find a deal. I'm happy to hear that Friedman is talking about this. But again, it's going to come down, like Martin St. Louis said, rather Kent Hughes said, to the last 22 games of the season, because Jake Evans' future is still dependent on how he plays for those if he kind of starts tanking over these next 22 games, maybe that kind of gives a little bit more ammo for kind of trading him and everything. So it's really going to come based off of it. And obviously Jake Evans knows it's a business. So he fully expects that, it's going to come down to the trade deadline, even with his extension, to really figure out what to do with him.
I mean, a lot of teams are going to be calling for him, right? This is the last thing we got for today's thing. This is a big one, right? This is what the thumbnail's all about. This is the big report from Pierre Lebrun, and Pierre had this to say, quote, among the teams that already have Jake Evans on their list are the New Jersey Devils, according to my information. He said they are looking for a good center for their third or fourth line and a right-hander who can win faceoffs and kill penalties. It's like they're describing him. He's maybe the best in the NHL at a combination of PK plus faceoffs. His faceoff percentage is not like in the top 10 of the league or anything, but it's good enough, and he's probably the best penalty killing forward in the league. That's my opinion, maybe yours too. But each team, like the Devils, aspiring to win a Stanley Cup, has a list of 10 to 12 players at this time of year, but Jake Evans is one of the 12 players in the Devils list. Wouldn't surprise me, Jesse, if he was on a bunch of other teams. Look, I saw some people in chat saying that we'd have to demand a king's ransom from the Devils. They took Kovacevic from us. They didn't really take him from us. I know Kent Hughes traded him. That it is what it is, right? That one's maybe looking like one of the worst deals that he's made, but at the same time, it's like, you had to clear the way. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not nearly as upset about that trade as I think a lot of fans are. Like, it is what it is. Had to make space. Yeah, Kovacevic is thriving in a different environment. You can't guarantee he would have done that in Montreal. In fact, he almost certainly wouldn't have. So it is what it is. Right now, I've said it 6 times. I got to stop. I got to find something else. But what are your thoughts on this, Jesse? Because, like, this is still, like, 2 months out from the deadline, and we're already hearing of specific teams that have these guys on their list. And what I like about this is the more teams that we hear are in on Jake Evans, his price is going to be driven up higher. So I don't know. Like, it's good in the sense that, like, Montreal could get a lot for him in a trade, but also bad in the sense that like, a lot of teams would want him, whether at this trade deadline or in the offseason once he's a free agent.
This is what makes me want to keep him, so much more, Jesse, is the fact that, like, other teams around, like, how good would he look on the New Jersey Devils, on this playoff team, being, they know when they're out in the playoffs and they get a penalty against them, they can just put Jake Evans out there, being so good on those penalties while having the firepower that they do. It's a lot of reasons like this of why it kind of reminds me of all the reasons why we want to keep Jake Evans. Like, I was texting you the other day, like, he has the identity of what we're looking for in a Montreal Canadien. He's hardworking. He pays attention to the small details in the game. He plays the game the right way. He's not afraid to make the simple yet effective play, which has been at the root of the Montreal Canadiens' success as a whole. Shout out to Martin St. Louis for really ingraining that in the team, finally repeating that message until they really accepted it, so that's the big thing, when we're really kind of considering all this here is just, you don't want to trade this player just to see him having so much success elsewhere. We know the points aren't going to continue, but yeah, for me, I see, again, this is why a trade is so probable, because there's just such a demand with what he's doing right now that obviously he's garnering so much interest.
Yeah, it's great. I see so many people talking in the chat about this. There's so many funny, like, not even funny takes, but it's just funny the range of takes, right? We got a recent one, maybe more of a joke, I don't know, but Shades by Charlotte says they should give Evans $2.5 million, but for 7 years. See, that's kind of crazy. Lock him up till he's 35, but that would be a bargain, right? It's guaranteed money for his life. Then we got some people saying you can't pay $4.5 million to a fourth liner. You just can't, because that's what Evans has shown his whole career. Yeah. That he's been a fourth liner. It's just really now that he's looking to be that third liner. So you have a much bigger sample size of him being a fourth liner, and I also kind of agree with that, right? Like, so there's a lot of different things here. Maybe you let another team pay too much, and someone says 4.5 is too much. Peter Pesano says 4.5 is too much because you'll still have to pay Lane Hutson, Demidov, Xhekaj, and Laine if you want to extend him, right? So every $1 million there means another $1 million that you don't have free for guys that you're going to need to extend. And the future of the Montreal Canadiens, Jesse, is really dependent on the contracts we have for these young guys coming up, because Lane Hutson's due for an extension. You can extend him as of July of this summer, right? I'm pretty sure that's the first time he can actually officially be extended. What are you going to give him, right? That's not something I've really thought about right now, but like, I'm thinking at least $7 million. Like, you know, like that's where it's going to be, right? And that's what he should demand, right? If the numbers stay up high, right? So there's a bunch of stuff to get to on that front. But my gosh, it's unbelievable. But I saw John say you got to run. Thanks so much. Thank you, John, for being here. We got people from Norway. Ronnie LaRock saying from Norway. My gosh, Joseph saying keep Jake the Snake. And we got another super chat, Jesse, from Ethan. Ethan, thank you so much for your generosity. Really appreciate that, guys. Also, again, if you donate to us or if you're a channel member, we will read your message in priority. So if I skip over your message, I'm sorry, but that's how we have to do it. We have so many loyal fans here in these chats. Ethan saying, if you're at the trade deadline, Jesse, 4 points ahead in a wild card spot, but someone offers you an amazing deal for Savard or Evans, would you trade? I mean, define amazing deal. I'm assuming at this point, amazing deal would be defined by something that I would be happy with in terms of pure value, Jake Evans for a return. 4 points up in the wild card. Look, if I get something that I consider amazing, maybe controversial, but I take it. I mean, I just take it because, again, you don't know how much you're going to want to pay him in the offseason, but also there's no need to go all in this year and just keep guys that you would normally get value for and let them walk in free agency at the end of the year just to maybe push for a playoff spot and then a potential first-round exit. I know, Jesse, you've mentioned, like, even I've mentioned, like, Cinderella teams happen, but I don't think you need to put yourself in that kind of situation and end up risking the fact that you're going to lose a couple guys for nothing. If I get an amazing deal, I take it. I don't know about you. Is that a hot take?
We're gonna keep Evans and then trade Savard. I think, and that's kind of finding that happy balance of where we're at. Like when we talk about the Habs maybe being buyers at the trade deadline, in my opinion, like actually keeping Jake Evans kind of makes us like a buyer in that situation, like finding the happy balance. Like, I don't know about us kind of going out for other trades, but more rather just keeping what we have really from within. We're seeing right now that we can survive without David Savard. I'm almost surprised to be saying that, you know, kind of at the midpoint season, because I didn't necessarily see that. I just saw that as, okay, part of the rebuild, bite the bullet, get the asset. It just really makes sense from the management point of view there. Evans, on the other hand, is, you know, we see still a future, you know, with this team of him being really effective. I think just having some continuity with an already very young team. As we look to compete, I don't want us getting too much younger all the time with all the prospects that we already have. Like, we're going to stay young for a minute with these prospects. We need to balance that out with some veterans. So again, another strong argument for keeping Jake Evans.
A lot of crazy stuff. We got Plonko saying, give Evans 6 for 4 years and move him to second C. I know you're joking there, Blanco. Imagine that. Hey, what about $6 million total for 4 years? That I might take. He said it's a joke. Of course, we're all good. Yeah, we know it's a joke. But final thing here, Jesse, I found an interesting comment here. Someone said, is there a free membership giveaway? That may be coming at some point, because we've had such amazing viewership here. We got over 500 people. Really appreciate it. You know, it might be worth giving back to the audience at some point. So keep your eye out for that. But one final thing before we sign off. Someone suggesting, look, if Evans is gone, try and bring Dvorak back on a sub $2 million contract. What do you think of that? Because you know what? I kind of love that idea if you have a spot open. Like, if you have a spot open and you don't want to bring in Becker Kapanen right away, I think Dvorak, just for his pure face-off ability and the fact you can put him on the second PK and he's not horrible, I don't mind it. Like, I know a lot of people don't like him, but clearly he has a good relationship with the locker room, which is valued as well. And I know he's not fun to watch play, but the faceoff percentage, the relationship with the team, if you can get him at 1.5, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that's a really good guy to have in your bottom, in your like fourth line, if that's what he ends up playing.
Absolutely not. I can't wait till Christian Dvorak is gone from this team. He's done nothing but overwhelm. And, you know, this is game of hockey. It's not horseshoes and hand grenades. It doesn't matter how close you come to the net and everything. He's so good at getting chances close but not really capitalizing a whole lot there. I had big hopes for him coming over.
Too.
I thought that he could kind of produce, you know, at least get around 50 points. He's showing nothing close to that. It's time to turn that page as we're going to the next chapter for the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay. Maybe it seems like I'm clearly in the minority here. Andrew Boone, please no. Image 1, I would pay to get rid of it. So anyway, yeah, fair enough. You know what? That's fine. I don't mind having him gone. Just replace him with someone like a Beck. You know what? Maybe Beck could actually end up being better for less money. So I guess that's a very good argument, right? Same thing with Kapanen. But we'll have to see on that front. But thank you all so much. Joseph saying thanks as always, boys, for you guys are the best. Leave us your thoughts on everything down below. This was a ton of fun, Jesse. Any final parting words for the amazing people in the stream as we just passed 200 likes as well?
Just amazing. Thank you guys again so much for the support, all the views, get along for the ride. We're just really getting started right now. Some really special, amazing, historic things is happening right now for the Montreal Canadiens. So an amazing time to be a fan.
Absolutely. You still don't know. Someone pointed out that Dvorak does have more points than Newhook this year. Weird. Still, I you know what? I'll give it to you guys. Let's not bring him back. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like on your way out. We just passed 200. Maybe we can get some more. We got 500 people in here. We'd really appreciate it. It's easy, one click, and supports us more than you could ever know. Hit the subscribe button as well. So many of you guys aren't subscribed. Still half the people watching this. So, hey, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, hit the button down below. It's free. You won't regret it. I promise. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. Catch you all in the next one.